For more on China's economy, we bring in Ann Lee, author of the international bestsellers What the U.S. Can Learn from China and, well, China's Economy Collapse. Good to see you again. Thank you and welcome to the show. These GDP figures, some people had expected a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. I think we were all sort of unsure of, because these are numbers reflecting the most recent closure of the restrictions and sort of the opening up of China. I guess my first question is, are you surprised that they were as strong as they were?
So when China announced that they were going to take off the restrictions, I had predicted that China would experience a rapid rebound from all the pent-up demand in the country. With that said, I actually am pleasantly surprised by the numbers, because if you think about it, this one is really based on more or less 2 months of growth, because in January, China had its New Year celebrations, which lasts about 2 weeks. And after the announcements of all the COVID restrictions coming off, it takes time for all the people to get back to the office, to get back to the factories, since everyone had scattered to all parts of the country to basically experience lockdown with their families or whatever. So really, it's a pretty strong number for largely 2 months of GDP growth. So I would say I was actually mildly surprised by it.
I, like you, also thought that, if you look at the other countries that ended COVID restrictions, nearly every country I've looked at has seen a significant bump. And if we just take sort of the developed countries, whether it's the US or in Europe, we saw very significant spending, specifically with tourism, where people were cooped up in their homes, like you said, and the minute you release them, we all go crazy and everybody wants to go eat and drink and do whatever they do and almost like shop. And I don't see how China would be any different, right? We all have the same sort of mental anguish when it comes to these restrictions. And I have to think that tourism domestically has been a big, big part of this GDP figure, alongside with general spending alone, just going out to the mall when before the mall was empty.
Absolutely. When you think about what happened leading up to COVID and then what happened during COVID, tourism fell off a cliff. I think international tourism fell by 85% or some crazy number like that. And so, the tourism industry lost, I'm sure, over $1 trillion by some estimates. And this rebound was, really necessary to get them back on track. And yes, I think that because the lockdown caused a lot of people to have less, discretionary spending power, the tourism that is coming back is largely domestic at this point, which is probably less expensive than going internationally. But I expect the international to basically grow, stronger as the year progresses. So
here's the thing, Ann. Not everything is perfect and rosy, right? There was some concern about the manufacturing and factory data that showed a little bit less of an increase that some were hoping for. And I guess there's two ways. One, either the factories are still trying to ramp up, or two, global demand is softening, or a combination of two. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
I think it's definitely a combination of two, because we know that the global economy is very soft based on the knock-on effects of the Ukraine war and the interest rate increases that have been happening, with the U.S. Fed as well as other central banks. And, in comparison to what's going on in the Western economies, where, most of them are growing less than 2%, and in some cases like the UK, which has negative growth, this is actually quite extraordinary what's happening in China. And so I think that, yes, it might not be as high as what it was pre-pandemic, but, it takes time for the factories and various other service businesses to get back in shape, because, a lot of businesses moved out of China during the pandemic to places like Vietnam and others in order to, keep factories moving and supply chains
Yeah.
moving. And so there was a lot of disruption.
And
So
I've got about 40 seconds left. What are the headwinds you think that China is going to face? Is it going to be real estate? Is it going to be tourism? Is it going to be foreign investment? What are the headwinds that you're seeing?
well, certainly the property market is still struggling. And I think that, unemployment also ticked up. But I think that the government is addressing them aggressively. They're trying to provide subsidies. They are inking a lot of international deals, which we've seen in the headlines with Xi Jinping meeting with France and Brazil. I think that's going to bring in more foreign direct investment into the country that will certainly also help growth in the second half. So, it's going to be very dynamic because there's, multiple things going on. But I think the government is certainly trying to prop up the weak areas, such as property, although they did want to deflate it. So I think that was.
Ann Lee, you are segueing in to our next story here, but I appreciate your insights on this. Ann Lee, international bestseller author. Thank you very much.